Hello everyone, and welcome to this fourth video in a series on how to install Drupal 9 on a Debian 10 based server. In the previous videos, we configured our server so that it has all of the dependencies that Drupal relies on. We grabbed the code from the Drupal website and we made it so that our Apache 2 web server can find those files. And then in the third video, we created the database. And so now we are at the point where we can run the installer. And again, we'll pick up where we left off in the previous video, where we had created the database. And I'm just going to hit the back button here. And we have step 4, configure your installation, which is not relevant for how we've gone about things, so we won't worry about that. We have the step 5, run the installer. And so there's not a whole lot of information here. They do link to the running the interactive installer, so there's more detailed information here if you're interested in having a look at that. We're not going to bother with that. That will take more time than I think is necessary. So what we're going to do is just hop on over to the website, and I'll just make this bigger. And so here I am at my IP address. I've configured things so that Apache knows to look in the proper directory. If you're uncertain about that, you can look at the second video in the series, and that will show you how to configure things so that Apache finds the right directory for running Drupal content. So here we are. We'll choose our language first. So whatever language is appropriate, you would select that. I'm going to do save and continue. I'm going to do a standard installation. I've never played around with any of these, so we won't bother with that. So I'll do save and continue. And you'll see that we're missing a lot of requirements here. And we'll take care of those right now. So I think what I'll do is just make that screen parallel with my command line, and I'll go ahead and run clear here so that we start with a clean slate. What we'll do first is look at these PHP extensions, and normally when you see this sort of thing, it's just a matter of appending the PHP directive with whatever the extension is. So, for example, that first one, we need the DOM extension, and we would do that with sudo apt install php-dom. And I've mentioned this a few times. If you are using something other than Debian 10, it may be a different command to get these. And in that case, you'll have to Google, for instance, Debian 8, how to get the PHP DOM extension. But in this case, I know this will work. So if I go ahead and hit enter, and normally when you see the extension and you just append PHP with dash whatever that extension is, more often than not it's going to work. It doesn't always, and actually I'll demonstrate that because I know that simple XML looks kind of suspicious to me. So we'll do the same command, only this time we'll do it with we'll get rid of DOM, and then we'll just append it with GD and yes. And okay, let's try the simple XML, simple XML, and you'll see unable to locate package. Now because they're telling us we need this XML package, I'm assuming that if we install that, simple XML will also be installed. I will use the up key to go to the previous command I ran. Let's just delete all of that and then put in XML. Okay, and anytime that we make any edits to PHP or Apache, we're typically going to have to restart it. So sudo system, what is it? Control. Sudo restart Apache 2. And if I refresh this page, these PHP extension errors should go away. And they did. They went away completely. So we're all set. Our PHP extensions are now taken care of. The next thing we're going to look at is this file system. And what they're telling us is the directory for site's default files does not exist. They tried to create it, it failed, and it's probably a permissions error. So we can fix that pretty easily. And what they're assuming that we are in the Drupal root directory. So for us, if you've been following along exactly with what I've been doing, it's going to be this HTML directory. That is the root directory for Drupal. And if we run the list command, you'll see that there is a directory here called sites. So let's just change into the default directory that they're telling us to change into. cd sites, site, you don't want to put in that slash. Sites, what is it, default, and we'll do the ls command to list things, and you'll see there is indeed no files directory listed here. So let's make that directory. Sudo mkdir for make directory, and then the name of the directory. In this case, we want to call it files. ls, you'll see that we now have the files directory. Now I'm going to hit the up arrow until we get to the sudo system control restart Apache 2. Restart things. We'll see if that fixed the problem. And it doesn't. The problem is that directory is not writable. And what we can do is just look at that directory's permissions by running this command, ls-la, and that gives us permissions, who owns it and what their permissions are. So you'll see that this files directory has full privileges for the root user, execute and read privileges for anybody that's in the root user group, and execute privileges for anybody. What we need to do is change the owner of this so that Apache 2 has permission to edit that directory, so it can read and write to that directory. And I'm going to do that by changing ownership to the Apache 2 user. And the Apache 2 user for this Debian-based system is www-data, I think. We can do that running sudo chon, C-H-O-N, what is it, www-data. Now you could also change the group too, so I could make it anyone I wanted really, but we'll just give it the Apache user group, and then the directory that we want to give those permissions to. So sudo chon www-data www-data files. Hit enter. Now if we run our ls-la command, you'll see that the www-data user now owns this directory. That's a good thing. And we'll probably have to restart Apache 2. So let's just use our up arrow until we get to that sudo system control restart command. So I've restarted Apache 2. Now this should go away. And we'll refresh. And it did. So just changing the ownership to the Apache 2 user is what we needed to do there. So the next thing we have to do is the settings file does not exist, and that is we're in the right directory. So if we run our ls command, you'll see that we have default services YAML and we have default settings PHP. What we need to do is create the settings file, and we can use that using this default settings. We want to keep the default settings file, so we're not going to use the move command in this case. What we'll use instead is the copy command. So we'll do sudo copy, and because we're in this directory now, we don't have to do the full path. So I'm just going to do default settings, and then we're going to copy the default.settings.php file to a new file called settings.php list, and you'll see that we have our settings PHP file here. I happen to know that we're also going to need to change the permissions on that. So if I do ls-la, you'll see that root has read write privileges, but nobody else does. So let's give our Apache 2 user ownership of that file so that we don't get any errors, and this will just save us some time of having to go back and do this again. So what was it? Sudo chown ww data, and we don't even have to put in the group, honestly, on settings.php. ls-la. You'll see that the root group has read privileges here because we didn't put in the :ww-data, which isn't a big deal for us. And then what we'll do is up arrow until we get to sudo system control restart Apache 2. Go ahead and do that. Minimize this. And now when I refresh this settings file error should go away. Okay, so these warnings that we're seeing here are also pretty important. I think what I'm going to do is do the Unicode library first, and the reason for that is this clean URLs, I don't know if there's a bug in the system. It doesn't work quite right. We'll address that, but let's take care of the easy one first. So what they're telling us is the PHP MB string extension for improved Unicode support has not been installed. Well, let's do that. It's pretty easy. All we have to do is sudo apt install php-mb string. So again, I'm seeing that it wants the MB string extension. I'm just going to append PHP with the dash name of the extension, and like I said, 90% of the time that's going to work for you. Go ahead and hit enter, and yes. Okay, great. I don't know if we have to restart Apache for that one. Yeah, we do. So I will up arrow until I get to the system control restart. Let's do that. We'll refresh. And now that warning has gone away. And this one, I'm surprised it's a warning because it's your site's not going to work well if you don't fix this. So what I'm going to do is try to do it now, and what happens is the warning doesn't go away, which is weird. I don't know if it's a bug or if I'm doing something stupid, or I just don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. But we're going to go ahead and enable the clean URLs now. It's kind of a convoluted process, but doing it now is going to save us some headaches once the installation stuff is done. So I'm going to click on this right now, and we're brought to this page. It's a troubleshooting guide. Right at the top here we have the fixed Drupal clean URLs problems. I'm going to click on that, and I'm just going to scroll down to the point that I know is relevant to me, and actually I think what I'm going to do is just clear. So what we need to do is kind of enable the rewrite module, and we can check to see if it is enabled by running this command, and you will need to do sudo despite the fact they're not using it here. Apache 2 control ctl-m, and they're telling us we need to look for rewrite module, and that usually ends up displaying somewhere down here. So what is it? This is alphabetical. So you'll see that we don't have the rewrite module included. So we're going to need to do that, and the first thing that we need to do is run this command here. So sudo a2 enmod space rewrite, and what they're telling us is to activate the new configuration you need to run system control restart Apache 2. We're not going to do that quite yet, just because there's some other work we need to do that will require us to run that. So rather than having us run it continuously, let's skip on over here and look at this part of the instructions. So there's a number of ways of doing this configuration, and I'm just going to use a htaccess file. They're kind of giving us instructions for other things. It's just not going to work well for the way I have things set up on my Debian 10 environment. So what I'm going to do is actually use these directives here in a htaccess file, and that needs to be in your document root, which we've established as being the HTML root. So I'm going to change directories back twice, and you can do that with cd // // So we'll go back one directory, and then we'll go back another directory for a total of 2 to get to HTML. Okay, if we do ls, you'll notice that there is no htaccess file here. That's because it's a dot file. In order to view the dot files, you need to do sudo, no, you're not sudo, ls-la, and the dot file doesn't exist here either. I'm not sure why that is, but we can create our own. So we'll do that by running, well, we can just do sudo nano, actually sudo touch.htaccess. And if I do ls, you'll see that because it's a dot file, it's not there. If I run ls-la, it is there. So what we need to do is edit that file, sudo nano.htaccess. And because we've just created it with the touch command, it is going to be empty. And what we need to do is just copy and paste these directives here into that file. Copy, bring it over here, paste. And then we can do Control S to save it, Control X to get out of there. And we're almost there. The last thing we need to do is make sure that the Apache web server is able to actually access the htaccess file. And we need to do that in the Apache 2 configurations. And we can do that by going into the etc /Apache 2 directory. So change directories cd to etc Apache 2 and ls. And we've been here before. We went into the sites available to change the document root, and then I changed it back in, I don't know, second or third video. And what we need to do now is look at this apache2.conf file. And we'll do that with sudo apache, apache2.conf. Let's see. Whoops, I got to put nano in there. Whoops, sorry about that. I'm going to do Control Z to get out of there. It needs to be Apache 2, not just Apache. Okay, now what we can do is, and I think they tell us this further down here. Yeah. So they're telling us that we need to allow overrides. And we can do that. If we scroll down, you'll notice that we have these entries for directories. And what we need to do is look specifically at this directory var www. We do want to, you'll see that right now you have allow override to none, which is done for security reasons. And we want to change this allow override to all. They also say that you need to include the access file name. Anytime I've done that, it just it doesn't work. So I don't do that. If you're running into problems, maybe you need to include this. But the way that I've been doing things, this just causes problems. So I'm not going to worry about that. So I changed the allow override. I don't know if this is case sensitive. It must not be. In any case, I changed it from none to all. And we can just run Control S and then Control X. And I think at this point, that should make sure that we're able to use the pretty URLs. Let's see. Oh, we need to run sudo system control restart Apache 2 now that we've done all of this work. And if we come back to, we'll have to hit the back button until we get to our configuration page. And if I reset this, it's still giving us the warning. However, I believe the problem has been fixed because if I go further into things, I don't have any problems. And if I don't put in everything that I've just shown you, then the site doesn't work. So I think it's fixed, and this is just a bug. I could be wrong. In any case, I'm going to choose continue anyway at the bottom here. And now we just need to do the database configuration. So what I'm going to do is, remember we set up our database and we called it Drupal. And then we set up our user as Drupal _user. And then our password we just left as password. And if you need to reconfigure ports and that sort of thing, you can do that here. But we don't need to do that, so don't worry about that. Let's just click Save and Continue, and then this should start the installation process. And so it's begun, and what I think I'll do is just pause the video while that does its thing. Okay, and now we just have a little bit of site configuration that we need to do. So whatever the site name is, in this case, I'm just going to call it Drupal tutorial. I'll just use my work email. Okay, and then we can set up our site maintenance or admin account. Just go ahead and do admin, 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 which are all garbage passwords. But again, this is for demonstration purposes and will be deleted. Regional settings, if we put in whatever region we're in. So in my case, it's United States. I'm on the West Coast, so Los Angeles is my time zone. If you uncheck these boxes here, you'll get some warnings later on. So I'm just going to keep them. If you're okay with the warnings, you can uncheck them. And at this point, we can save and continue. Now we have our Drupal site, and it's pretty much configured so that it is up and running the way it should be. I've been logged in as my admin account, so you'll see here I'm the admin. There's one more thing I think we want to do before we go, and that is, let's see, if we go to Manage, we'll get this navigation panel here, and there's a bunch of things you can do. But what we want to do right now is look at reports. And they kind of talk about this in step 6, the status check. We'll just do it quick because it's pretty simple to get through. We'll just make this video a little longer. So we have the status check here, and they're kind of telling us what we need to do. So we're gone to administration reports and status report. Reports and status report, and this will tell us any problems we're having with our system. And right now you can see that we have one error happening, and it's fine. It's the trusted host settings. And what they do, they really give us some good information on where to go to fix this error. And I suspect they probably do the same with all of these other ones. If we hadn't set up the pretty URLs beforehand, we wouldn't even be able to make it to this page. So if you're having problems right now, that setup is what's causing your problem. If you follow the instructions, if you're using Debian 10, you shouldn't be. Maybe going through those steps once again might be helpful in terms of troubleshooting. But otherwise, it's probably going to take some Google searches to figure out what's going on. I'm going to look at the details of this one error. Oh, I see. It just brings us down a little bit to this spot here. And it tells us what we need to do to fix the error. Gives us a link. We can just click on that. And yeah, it's giving us a bunch of information. So the trusted host security setting is really what's causing our problem. And we can fix that pretty easily. What we need to do is go back to the var www html. I believe it's sites default, I think. Let's ls. So what we're after here is the settings document. Sudo nano settings. Oops. Settings.php. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to look for this. There's 783 lines. I don't want to search through all of that myself, so I'm just going to use Nano search feature. And to do that, you would do Control W. I don't know what W stands for. It's not very intuitive. But this gives us a search prompt that you can see here. And I want to look for trusted host patterns, right? Yeah. And that'll bring us down to this section on trusted host configuration. Mostly this isn't a big deal, and actually not fixing it probably isn't going to cause you a lot of problems. However, I like to fix things that are throwing up error messages. So we're going to fix this, and we can do it. They give us examples of how this works. You need to use regular expressions. I'll let you just kind of figure that out on your own. In my case, what I need to do to fix this problem, though, is do this directive, settings, and it's an array, trusted host patterns, and let's see, equals bracket, single quote, and then the caret, which is the shift, the number 6, will give you that. And what this does is it's a regular expression. It just lets us know that it is the start of a string using regular expressions. And because I'm using a IP address, I'm going to put in the IP. If you actually have a domain that you can use, then I would follow the examples they give here. But in order for me to do this, I need to use an IP. So whatever my IP is, what was it, 10.3.20, I believe it was 11. And then we'll close it. What we need to do is put in the $sign, and that is a regular expression to denote that is the end of a string. So it is looking specifically, it must start with 10, it must end with, well, actually it must start with 1, it must end with 1. Now what we need to do is, let's see, what is it? We'll put in a comma, and then enter, and then close the bracket, and put in a semicolon. I think that's right. That looks good. So Control X, and then Y to save, and then enter. And let's see, I don't know if we have to restart Apache for that. Let's find out. If we go back to our installer, trusted host settings, let's. So I bet we have to restart Apache too. So sudo system control restart Apache 2 should do it. And then if we okay, so that didn't work, and I must have had a typo or something in the settings.php file. So let's see, Control W, I don't know, trusted host, and let's see here. Come down here, and yeah, that's what the problem is. I didn't put an S in here. Sorry about that. Control X, yes to save, and then let's see if I reload that. So I don't have to restart Apache to take care of that. But at this point, our status report is telling us we're good. So this is nice. This is a really cool panel to get some information from. And if you run into errors, it appears they provide some good links for that. And so in terms of an initial installation, you should be good to go at this point. I would start clicking around and checking things out. You could create some content just to kind of check to make sure things are good. Let's see, basic page. This is a page. URL aliases. Maybe I'll try this as a test to make sure that those pretty URLs are working. Let's just call it test. And let's save. Oh, your alias has to start with a /. And save. And so this is a basic page, and you'll see that because we're here, it's using test. If that warning we were getting for the pretty URLs wasn't done earlier on in this video, this wouldn't be working right now. So if it is working, you're in really good shape. If it's not working, perhaps try going back and trying to do the htaccess file. And if that doesn't work, it's time to do some Google searches to figure out what's going on. But as I've said, if you were following along exactly and you're using Debian 10, this should be working for you. So I hope that this series proved to be insightful for you. And of course, if you have questions, you could leave them in the comments. If this was helpful for you, please hit the like button. In terms of comments, I will try to help if I can. I would consider myself to be more of an intermediate level systems administrator. So no guarantees that I'd be able to figure out what sorts of problems you have, but perhaps other users would be able to help you out in the comments. So I'd like to thank you for watching, and take care.